Hi, so I will first talk about the inflation data in Indonesia between 2019 and 2021. So inflation is when the average price of virtually everything consumers buy goes up. So according to the Bank of Indonesia, and thanks to their data, we were able to make this graphic, which represents the inflation from 2019 to 2021, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. So we can observe that this graph is mostly decreasing. I will explain it now. So we can see that at the beginning of 2019, when the pandemic had not started yet, Indonesia's inflation was at around 2.8% and 3.30%. Then, when COVID started to have an impact in the country at the end of 2019, inflation rates started to decrease hard. In 2020, the inflation hit 1.32%. Because of COVID, a lot of firms and businesses were forced to close. Thus, an estimate of 3 million people lost their jobs. The Indonesian economic activity was very low. But now we could say that inflation stabilized and is starting to increase back since the end of 2020 and during 2021, when the government got control of the situation and vaccination started. Thank you.
The COVID-19 pandemic began to enter Indonesia at the end of 2019. The rapid spread of cases began to occur in 2020. Social distancing policies that have resulted in many businesses experiencing difficulties. The decline in workers' wages has an impact on the decline in aggregate demand, and the output will decrease and price will decrease as well. Especially the period June 2020 until December 2020 fell so low, even beyond the inflation target set by Bank Indonesia, which is 3.5% or plus minus 1%. Limited supply chains, this leads to a decrease in aggregate supply in the economy, resulting in a decrease in the amount of production or quantity and increase in price. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused the shock of the aggregate demand and the aggregate supply, and Indonesia decline in aggregate demand is greater than the aggregate supply. So Indonesia inflation during 2020 until 2021 is decreasing.
Impact of decreasing inflation during 2020. The decline in inflation ultimately has an impact on the weakening of the economy, namely a decrease in national output or national income. In fact, Indonesia's economic growth contracted in the third and fourth quarters of 2020. This condition indicated during the pandemic. To be precise, Indonesia entered the brink of recession. Although it is projected that there will be a rebound in the third quarter of 2020, negative economic growth for 2 consecutive quarters is an economic recession. In July 31, 2020, the number of formal and informal workers found due to COVID-19 reached more than 3.5 million. Of that number, data that has been filtered through BPJS reached until 2.14 million working.
As already said before, during pandemic COVID-19, the inflation in Indonesia continued to decrease. It has prompted the Indonesian government, Indonesian bank, and financial service authorities to implement several policies. The Ministry of Finance has also reallocated APBN funds around 62.3 trillion. The funds are used for handling COVID-19 and social protection. On the other side, Indonesian bank applies a quantitative easing policy by lowering the interest rate and buying the government bonds. Then, financial authorities try to maintain the stability of the financial sector by policy of credit and financing restructuring.